I first would like to thank you for inviting me to give a speech in this interesting conference. I would like to say that I'm from Tunisia, and I'm an economist, and I'm now working on the tourism sector, sustainability, tourism planning, all this kind of things. So I will speak about, I think it's like the fastest growing sector worldwide, which is the tourism industry, and specifically cultural tourism as an engine for the economic growth in Middle East and Africa and North Africa. So I would like to start with a definition for the cultural tourism. Culture is a complex concept, and it has so many definitions. So I selected few of them from the sociology perspective. Culture is a process through which people make sense of themselves in the life, and culture also is defined as a product where individual or groups of activities to which certain meanings are attached. But what is important today for our presentation is the culture for the tourism from a tourism perspective. So culture is an asset for tourism development, but also culture is benefiting from tourism as well. So here, I found so many definitions for cultural tourism. I just selected one of them, and it tells that culture is a form of tourism where both tangible and intangible heritage, and also artistic activities like intangible heritage or tangible heritage like sites and museums are the most focus of tourists to travel somewhere. Before starting discussing cultural tourism in the framework of MENA region, I wanted to start with giving the reasons why I think that cultural tourism is increasing more and more, and tourists are more and more demanding in terms of cultural tourism. Actually, there are two reasons. First, the market forces and the economic trends. We all know that tourism is one of the most dynamic and changing sectors worldwide, and also tourists are becoming more demanding in terms of quality of tourism, the quality of tourism products, and in terms of diversifying tourism products. Actually, the World Tourism Organization in 2015 they did a research, and they found that most participants in this study, most participants, they said that they are more attracted to the cultural aspect when they visit a city. Also, this was confirmed by the World Travel and Tourism Council in 2013. They found that the cultural tourism, 40% of tourists are traveling for cultural reasons. Also, we cannot deny that usually people who are cultural tourism generates more revenues, and cultural tourism attracts high spending tourists. So Middle East and North Africa is the historical origin of major religions, and also diverse civilizations were coming from the MENA region. This is why MENA region has a diverse and a rich cultural heritage. Together, this is coupled, of course, with the natural beauty of this region that made tourism industry one of the most economic sectors in this region. Taking the example of Tunisia, for instance, the tourism sector is the third most important industry after agriculture and mining. And it contributes to 7% of the total GDP, and it creates around 400,000 jobs. 400,000 jobs for Tunisia is a lot, because we are around 11 million, so not too many. Here are some statistics about the contribution of the tourism in general to the MENA region. In 2016, it contributed to $107.3 billion to the total GDP, and also it contributed to $93 billion in terms of exports. Also, it contributes to 84.9% billion dollars in terms of investments. In addition to that, of course, tourism is main generator of foreign exchange earnings, and as well it contributes to job creation, and also it affects other industries and other sectors like agriculture. This is why, we can see the importance of the tourism industry for the from the economic perspective for the MENA region in general. Here I just wanted to discuss the forms of tourism in some cities in the MENA region. Let's start with Saudi Arabia. Religious tourism is the most important form of tourism there. There is also business tourism in Riyadh, and also there is coastal tourism mainly in Jeddah, and also coastal and shopping and leisure all together, going together. Turkey is, of course, is very, very touristic destination, and it has several forms of tourism, from cultural to business tourism, sport, and wealth and health tourism. Here, I just selected some pictures of Cappadocia, I think, and this is the Blue Mosque. Here's Tunisia, my country. As I told you already, tourism is very important for Tunisia, as we have limited resources, and also our agriculture potential is also low, as we are semi-arid country, so we don't have a lot of water resources, and we even have problems. We are struggling with water problems. So for us, the potential to develop tourism has a great potential to develop our economy. I just selected some. We have also several forms of tourism, but the main form of tourism is coastal tourism. Around 83% of tourists are coming to Tunisia for beach tourism, and they are coming. And unfortunately, although we have diverse cultural sites, we have also natural beauty. We can also develop ecotourism more, but the politicians are more focused on coastal tourism. Here is the first picture is our Medina in Tunis, and the second is Sidi Bou Said in Tunis as well, the capital. Israel also is known for religious. Actually we cannot say tourism, but it's also a destination for Muslims, Jewish, Christians, and there are no really organized trips to Israel, as it's not safe destination, but there is around 2 million annual visitors to Israel that are going there individually. Dubai is known more for business tourism, shopping, luxury tourism. I'm trying to be fast, maybe. So, and Egypt also, it has so many diverse forms of tourism, and of course, it has so many cultural sites that are attractive for tourists, like the pyramids, for instance. Jordan, it also has cultural and coastal tourism. Here, the first picture is Petra. It has, I think, also religious tourism. It has a pilgrimage site on Jordan River, where Jesus was baptized. Now I will speak about the tourism industry within the changement after the Arab Spring. The Arab Spring affected the whole economy in MENA region, but specifically tourism. Tourism was the main affected industry. Let's take the example of Tunisia, for instance. Just after the revolution at the end of 2010, the number of tourists decreased by 43%. Tourism revenues decreased by the half as well, and many hotels closed. Also, after because of the unstable political situation and the insecure situation, and in 2015, I don't know if you heard about the terror attacks in Tunisia. 59 persons were killed after the terror attack in the Museum of Bardo and the terror attack in Sousse, and this also was a disaster for our tourism. So Here, like some statistics as well. In 2011, in the Middle East region, the number of arrivals declined by 8.4%, and in North Africa it declined by 6.5%. Here's about tourism revenues. In Egypt, in 2011, the tourism revenues decreased by 30%, and in Tunisia decreased by 45%. Also, it was like the image of those countries was really affected, and also because of the because of the media as well. They really wanted to show that this, for instance, Tunisia was not that unsafe, but like the media played a role that made Tunisia like that affected more the image of Tunisia as an insecure destination. And then this is why also other competitive destinations like Morocco or Greece, they were more attractive, and the tourists that they used to come to Tunisia, they switched their destination to those countries. Here I will just speak about some strategic reforms in order to ensure the return of tourism to MENA regions. Okay, first of all, it's important to say I'm speaking from the perspective of Tunisia because I'm writing my PhD on the tourism in Tunisia, but I believe that the situation is almost the same in all, at least North African regions. We have a problem with tourism planning. All our tourism strategies are inefficient, and they even stop. For instance, the last tourism strategy was supposed to be from 2010 to 2016, and it was interrupted in 2013 because of the coming government. Every government, when they come, they want to change the strategy. The strategy now that is implemented, it's the Tourism Vision 3+1, and they even want to interrupt it because they want to make a new one, but it was supposed to be until 2025. So strategies are not sustainable, are not effective, and at the same time there is no monitoring for the implementation of the strategy. So So the first thing that I believe it's important is like to focus on diversifying products. Let's take the example of Morocco, Egypt, or Tunisia. The main focus is on coastal tourism, but those countries have a big potential in terms of cultural or other forms of tourism that should be considered while planning for tourism development. Also, if we consider other forms of tourism, this will attract more higher spending tourists, and this will of course be more beneficial for the economic development, also for social well-being as well, because when we develop tourism in rural areas, for instance, this was also local people will also benefit from this development. It's also important to have a marketing strategy that change the image of those destinations. For instance, Tunisia has the image of a low-cost coastal destination, and this image has to be changed in order to attract, let's say, better quality tourists who are ready to spend more. Also, it's important to focus on domestic tourism. I should give an example of Tunisia. After this terror attack in 2015, 80% of hotels were booked by Tunisians. So we really have to focus on our domestic tourism that, let's say, that saved the tourist season at that year. Here are just some statistics about domestic travel that generate 45.3% in 2015, by the way, in terms of GDP for travel and tourism. And also, here also domestic tourism contribute to 7% to Egypt in terms of tourism revenues. In order to diversify tourism and to develop other forms of tourism is also, of course, important to upgrade the infrastructure. We cannot speak, for instance, about developing ecotourism in rural areas without developing developing roads, make them accessible for tourists. Also, it's important to maintain all existing tourism infrastructure. For Tunisia, all hotels are really old, and we are suffering like from they are really because they started. Let's say the development of tourism in Tunisia started from 1962. And at that time, the strategy of Tunisia was the massive construction of hotels. Now, those hotels are becoming old, and they don't really follow the quality standards. So we really have to work on maintaining the existing infrastructure and also developing new infrastructure. Also, also, of course, the local community will take profit from this developing of infrastructure as well. Okay. Yeah, enhancing safety is something very important to attract tourists. Here, like I already discussed the fact that the terror attacks in Tunisia, they generated 59 killed people, and at that time Tunisia has really to work on the security situation in order to to regain the confidence of tourists and make Tunisia attractive again to tourists. Yeah, this is also an important point. I will also discuss from the perspective of Tunisia the problem that tourism is very complex industry, and many stakeholders are and many stakeholders are interfering in this sector, and they also have sometimes and most of the time they have conflicting point of views. So they should really work together in order to develop a sustainable tourism. For instance, when we want to develop cultural tourism, we have to take into consideration the limits respected to maintain these cultural assets. When we want to discuss ecotourism, we have to take into consideration the carrying capacity of a region. Yeah, meeting potential partners is also important for developing cultural tourists. For instance, people who have a passion about or commitment about culture or arts will make them potential partnerships and will encourage them to invest in cultural tourism. Also achieving community commitment is an important aspect in terms of promoting, in terms of developing and promoting cultural tourism. In fact, cultural tourism is about telling stories, about telling history, and this is like informing and amusing for visitors, but at the same time it makes local community to feel a sense of commitment. Yeah, that's all. Thank you. Yeah?
Yes.
Yes,
Thank you, Salma, for your presentation.
Thank
Yes, I do believe that cultural tourism is the only kind of tourism, because tourism is a very can be very dangerous. Cultural tourism is one of the forms of tourism that is the less
dangerous.
Indeed. It is also a question of, I would say, the normally some capacity studies.
Building,
Yes,
capacity
no, capacity studies.
You mean, yeah, I understand. You mean in terms of carrying capacity
Carrying
of the
capacity, yes,
of the
studies.
cultural sites.
Right. There must be done, but it is more like what kind of tourism do we need, or do you choose to have? Because mass tourism, for example,
Yeah.
terrible
Yeah.
results all over the world, and also cultural tourism should also promote domestic tourism.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not only cultural tourism from outside.
Yeah.
It supports also the knowledge
Mm-hmm.
from the in the country
Mm-hmm.
for the country. So yes, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So the so it was a question, or it was
No, it's
just a
like
yeah. Thank you.
supporting the-
Thank you. Yeah, yeah.
Also my comment is also in the same line, because
Mm.
I think carrying capacity is very important. As you mentioned, Tunisia is a very small country.
Yeah.
At the end, specific geographically speaking,
Yeah,
it also
yeah.
has a number of people
Yeah.
living in it. And having a mass tourism, because the coastal is like, we all know that this type of tourism is the worst in terms
Yeah,
of
yeah,
what
yeah.
is the
Environmental
impact on
sustainability and
exactly, and
consumption of resources and degradation of
capacity
coastal.
development
Yeah.
can
Mm.
collapse with the big
Yeah.
numbers of tourism in that way. However, I mean, Tunisia, as you said, is extremely important in terms of cultural resources, in terms of archaeological sites, in terms of intangible heritage, and
Yeah.
in terms of rural as well, like rural tourism, like, you know, like living with the locals, doing something. And most probably, I think what needs to be done is more an economic study on the impact of tourism on that level, on the Tunisian economy. Like, if you can talk about economic impact of cultural / rural tourism, or something that can bring decision makers to make the change, because usually decision makers like to see numbers, and unfortunately, like when you look at the big numbers that comes from the coastal tourism, nobody does also benefit, what they say, like a SWOT, or like, you know, analysis, that they don't know that the damages are way more than the numbers,
Yeah, yeah.
as you said, of what they get. So most probably, in the focus also on tourism, it should be advised also, maybe working with scholars and with linking academia to the tourism sector, where you can generate such reports, where you can have numbers of use or non-use value, it doesn't matter, but on the impact of cultural and rural tourism on
Yeah, you are right. Actually, the problem with tourism planning in Tunisia is like there is no long vision, and the problem started from the 1962, when they started to develop tourism, and they started to develop to build the settle for mass tourism by building so many hotels, attracting so many tourists, reducing prices. Like the tour operators that we are working with as well, they are taking 40%. That was the trend.
That's they were pioneers by that vision. But at this moment, it's old-fashioned.
Yeah.
Plus, it is
Not
proven
sustainable.
That it is not sustainable. It's gonna kill the carrying capacity.
Yeah, and I believe that impact assessment should be done in terms of environmental sustainability, also cultural. Like there is now heritage impact assessment as well to assess the capacity of cultural site, for instance. And what I'm doing in my thesis is called strategic environmental assessment. It is done at a strategic level, at the policies, plans, and programs. And it is I'm assessing the tourism vision 3+1, and not only from the environmental or cultural. It's like a global thing. Yeah, this is what I'm doing, like assessing the strategy.
You have a voice somewhere.
Well, I'm not sure, honestly. I'm not sure. It's like I hope that really they consider academia while developing their policies, because, as I told you, we have really problem with our vision, I have to say, with vision in Tunisia, not only in terms of tourism, but like all other sectors, all other economic sector.
But the strategic environmental and cultural assessment and social assessment, that would be the key to the new plans, because it's not only an impact assessment, but it's on the planning.
Yeah.
And it should be done in the whole process of planning.
Yeah, it should go hand to hand with the implementation of the strategy.
Right. From
Yeah.
the planning, since the implementation, monitoring,
Yeah, as well.
follow up, and then the
Yeah.
replan.
And this is like the problem. We never monitor our strategies. We don't even implement the complete strategy, and we never monitor the strategies in terms of impacts or in terms, yeah. Yeah, please.
So I also come from BTU. I'm a World Heritage Studies.
Really? Okay,
candidate.
good.
So as you imagine, tourism it's a very big issue for us. Mostly
Okay.
when you look at Prague, when you look at Venice, when you look at Lisbon, for example, where I come from, gentrification is happening right now. And the biggest problem is that those people, they are the cultural significance of the place. They are living their homes. They are living, and that's the problem, because they cannot have a sustainable life in their own places.
Yeah.
So the thing is that we must innovate. How? But the problem is that how we are going to innovate. But for me, a big issue is that because the human being still couldn't find a way to stop it. Because that's the thing. How we are going to stop Venice?
Yeah.
To continue this, it's a World Heritage Site. It's in danger, but actually it's not on the World Heritage list in danger. I don't know why, but it should be. But it's not. So how we are going to stop this? Which measures are we going to take? Is Venice being monitoring? I'm wondering that, because actually I don't know. Because on the management plan it's actually a bit confused. So we need to monitor these practices and try to identify, I don't know,
New measures, new ways.
To stop this.
Yeah.
It's a crime what's happening. Just one more thing. For example, Berlin. I don't know if you heard about. They pretend to build a flu spot in front of the dome. So flu spot they intend to destroy the barrier that is in front of the cathedral and to build a beach. These kind of innovations that we want for our World Heritage Site. Berlin is full of tourists. So are we going to build a beach in the middle of Berlin to attract more tourists to the center of Berlin?
This is all.
Is this sustainable?
Yeah, this is also, I said, all stakeholders should be involved in the planning process.
There's another thing that
People who are think from the cultural perspective how to protect this site should be also involved and should be like a holistic approach of planning. Not only people just maybe businessmen come and say, I would like to invest there and this will generate this and this and this in terms of economic revenues, but all other aspects should be also considered as well.
Don't take me wrong, because tourism is very important.
It is the fastest growing industry in the world.
Exactly. You already mentioned capacity. That's very important.
Yeah.
And the other word that for me what was more important during our presentation was community participation.
Yeah.
How the civil society are participating in this framework, How they are, because it's for the authorities. It's for the authorities, how the community is integrated in the tourism.
Yeah.
That's the problem, because we are not listening to people. Their concerns, and that's the problem.
Yeah.
Maybe not in the Arab states, it is considering Arab states the UNESCO region as Arab states.
Yeah.
Maybe there is some struggles, and maybe yes, we must attract tourists. But there are other points of the world that we must definitely take urgent measures. Otherwise, we are destroying our own heritage.
Actually, we cannot be 100% sustainable. We should admit it's not easy when we speak about sustainability to say we are sustainable. But like you said, while planning, we have really to have a holistic planning, to consider all impacts, to consider all stakeholders, to involve community, to try, monitoring, as you said, is important, to follow up the strategies and to readjust them, because we cannot say all strategies are based on scenarios, on strategic thinking, on simulations, and the world is changing, and tourism is very complex industry, and many things can interfere and change. So this is why monitoring is very important. Sorry, you wanted Margarita to...
No, I just wanted to mention something that was mentioned also, and it's the fact that when a place became World Heritage, it attracts a lot of mass of tourism, and this also had created in many places. For example, I come from Mozambique now, and living in Mozambique, and in the island of Mozambique, it's like a museum. It's like a thematisation of what the tourists want to see there, and that happens also in Venice, and that happens also in Barcelona. So the cities began to sell an image that passed for the tourism. Yeah? So we have the idea to go to Barcelona, and to go there, to the Sagrada Familia. education in Berlin. That's, yes.
Yeah, this is why, for instance, I take the example of Tunisia again. We are now going in this path of promoting cultural tourism. You know, in Tunisia we have eight in the World Heritage site, 8 World Heritage sites, but our cultural tourism is really not very, compared to coastal tourism, is nothing. And now we are working on developing the cultural tourism, so we have to be aware, and we have to have like specialists in the field from the beginning in order to, we can do, for instance, the heritage impact assessment from the beginning to know which kind of impacts can affect the site before making it a touristic attraction and promote the country as a cultural tourism destination. Yeah, so I think it's a lot of work can be done in this field.
And finance, because the thing is that doing the marketing, doing the branding, but in the end know the consequences and know that you must do in a sustainable way. I'm, for example, now speaking about Africa, I love the global strategy of UNESCO, but now in the case of Mozambique, but the global strategy doesn't think what comes out. The global strategy doesn't think about protection and conservation. They just think about putting sites on the World Heritage List. What happens next? How do we support those communities, those authorities, those governments? How we support them? Because they're focused on putting sites on the list, which is important for Africa, is good for the African empowerment. That's actually I'm here as well for capacity building, which I'm very focused on. But what's happening? What happens after a site being listed on the World Heritage? And that can be the case of Mozambique. Where is the conservation and protection measures? Because we made that happen, so now we must control it.
Yeah, for instance, like in Tunisia, there is the Medina of Kairouan. Is the whole city is a World Heritage site. But when you see the ruins in the city center, and like nothing is organized, pollution everywhere, rubbish is thrown everywhere, tourists are not even considering it. You say, where is UNESCO? Like, yeah. Please, yes.
I'd like to say that you talked about Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
When we think about cultural tourism, I think it's also difficult because, especially Asian countries, they have an issue with accepting different religions. They're really, for example, Saudi Arabia, it's really hard, and they do not consider some colors. I mean, they are really strict, and if you seen different clips of people really being tortured, I think that's really difficult to change something. You may want a sustainable plan, but then that's how their life is. That's how they have known things. It's how they have. I mean, they are fixed to one way of life.
Yeah.
They do not know how. I mean, they are not even open-minded to. They're not even open to some things we're talking about here, because to them, what are you? I mean, if you're not Muslim, then we cannot associate with you. You cannot go to some places in that country. So Asian countries, even the United Arab Emirates, some of them are just like that. So I think it's difficult to engage such a conversation with them. But then I think, I don't know.
Okay.
So how would you suggest we deal with such countries?
Mine is authentic mistaken.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, I would like to say something. I was in Tunisia in 2009, for example. I means here, yes, very common, but it's not the thing that I always say. It's just some of the sustainable tourism that has been said here. Yeah, regarding cultural tourism, for example, I have been missing a lot with this presentation, not because you are not aware of that. But one of the things that shocked me back in 2009 is the big amount of cinema, heritage that you have in your country. I mean, a lot of very
Cinema?
famous movies, a lot of famous movies has been filmed in Tunisia.
Yeah, like Star Wars.
Yeah, Star
Yeah.
Wars and even more, like the British Patient,
As well, okay.
More movies, and you still have some heritage and some of the locations and decorations
Yeah,
are
yeah.
still there. And even though this can be called for, I don't know, it has been stopped, or new productions can be done over there because your background, your diversity of backgrounds and locations is very diverse. funny because I come from Barcelona. For me, it's funny when the people are talking about, massification of tourism. For example, there is this extreme left party, which I am agree with a lot of things that they say. But for me, it's funny because they are complaining of massification of tourism sometimes. And if you take a look, okay, if you don't have tourists, what are you going to do? How are you going to make money?
Yeah.
I mean, for me, if you have a lot of people coming, this can be somehow sustainable. What is not sustainable is, for example, if you are doing in some of the countries that they cannot do that because they don't have resources, for example, water, a lot of golf pitch everywhere, and theme parks that they are using a lot of water, and this kind of thing. This is not sustainable.
I
I
think.
mean, what you do, not the people going there. I mean, and this is the other thing, because I am tired of people, be careful, and I don't want to be misunderstood. We don't understand anything. We are sending the message all the time to the people, we have to save the planet. And this is why nothing has been changed and nothing is happening. We don't have to save the planet. We have to save humanity. We have to save ourselves. Because if we destroy or we damage the planet, even if we die because we are not able to live here, the planet will be still there and will rise without us. And in order to set up in our conscience, some change in our actions, we don't have to say save the planet to do things sustainable. No, we have to say we have to save ourselves. Because we are killing ourselves. We are not killing the planet. The planet will be here. This is what I wanted to say, and that's why nothing has been changed, because people are not aware. If I'm going to say, I'm going to break that chair, maybe you don't care. But
Yeah.
if I just say, be careful, don't misunderstand, I'm going to kill you, you're going to say, hey, I have to do something to be changed. You know what I mean? Sorry for the parallelism.
No, it's okay. Can I just first answer him and then take your question? Okay, thank you. So actually, I just wanted to say something about the economic sustainability for tourism. You said we have to attract more tourists, and more tourists are coming, so it's better. Actually, it depends on what kind of tourism. We have to attract higher spending tourists. For instance, for the case of Tunisia, a tourist is spending 43 dinars, is like the equivalent, let's say, of 15 or even less euros per day. And he comes and he stays in the hotel and he doesn't do anything. He eats there. He goes to the swimming pool, and okay, there are some like organized cultural trips, but everything is included. And also, when we are like tour operators who are organizing all these trips, they are taking 40% of the revenues. So as Tunisia, we are not receiving anything, and we are 12 millions in 2000. Now I think we are receiving around 6 million tourists, almost the half. They are just coming and staying in hotels and not really being like economically profitable for us. And at the same time, they are consuming our resources. They are contributing to the degradation of coastal zones. They are, a tourist is consuming around, I think, 500 liters of water per day. And a tourist is contributed to 1 kilogram, is generating 1 kilogram of solid waste per day. And a tourist, what else? Like many other indicators. And when we see the quality of tourism that we have, and this was all because of the strategic error that policymakers made from the beginning to be in this mass tourism path. And now it's not easy for us to go back and to consider other resources, other tourist attractions in Tunisia, and to make our tourism more diversified and more sustainable as well. As I told you, it all has to be from the beginning, from the planning stage.
Yeah. So maybe the solution, I agree completely with what you said.
Yeah.
You're completely right. But as I said last week in a conference, maybe the solution is not stop or reduce. Is to use our imagination.
Yeah, to change the image of Tunisia, because Tunisia, as I told you, the image is like a low-cost coastal destination. You have to change the image to attract. We want less tourists, but we want more higher spending tourists.
I didn't go to the beach when I was in Tunisia.
Really?
I did
Cool. Okay.
I went to
Sidi Bouzid.
So I did touristic stuff.
And you went alone, or it was an organized
No,
trip?
we were in a group of students. Yeah.
Okay, good.
We were in much better
Yeah.
The only thing is the sunlight is
Yeah.
very dark, very quite early.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, marsh.
But it's okay, we can enjoy it.
Yeah, can I just say something about Saudi Arabia? Like yeah, actually, when I just when you saw this slide, it's not about like I think religious tourism is a kind of cultural tourism, first of all, right? Yeah, religious tourism is a kind of cultural tourism first. Second, I was just trying to to introduce the forms of tourism that exist in these cities. This is why. But I totally agree that if you are not Muslim or if you're not wearing a scarf, if you are,
I don't know what is that.
it's like you will not be welcomed there.
And this is a huge debate, religious tourism, cultural tourism, huge debate.
Really?
But this is a
Okay,
debate.
but about Emirates, for instance, I have been to Dubai and it's so international, and you will be it's not, you cannot compare to to Saudi Arabia at all. Like it's something completely different. Yala, just this girl wanted to ask
No, but I
before.
want to comment on Saudi. It's the
Okay,
same
okay,
topic.
so
I just
sorry.
wanted also
Sorry.
to highlight the fact that these people, these countries don't rely on tourism on their finance, on their economy. They have the gas, they have the
Yeah.
petroleum, they have the pilgrim. So basically, whether you like it or not, being Muslim has to go once in your life. It means they sustain forever a fortune out of that. So basically, they will never look at what is cultural relevance to the world or not. Plus, I mean, to be frank, I mean, when we travel the world, we also change our habits and traditions to respect the country that we are in. And I don't see any problem, like, in changing a little bit. I'm not saying to be covered or something, but to wear modesty in a very Islamic restricted country is not something that's weird. Because, as example, also when I travel to, I don't know, I can't have an example at this moment. When I went to Vatican, I had to wear a really long skirt, and I didn't go with my shorts and things. So basically, things changes, and showing respect to that is not a big problem. Also, as Selma said, that I lived in Dubai. Dubai works. Dubai doesn't focus on tourism, but works on the image of Dubai. It's something else.
Yeah.
But Dubai is one of the most open countries that I lived in. And
Yeah.
actually, I never ever felt the feeling of
Yeah.
being a woman forced to dress something that is not appropriate in society. Although they consider a very Muslim country and conservative, but they are conservative to their own nationals.
Yeah,
They are
that's true.
quiet.
They care only about their
This is
women.
the
They
thing
have
with
to
you.
be.
I am born in a Christian tradition, although there is no religion country.
Yeah.
But I mean, you are talking with a person, and it is not the moment for the debate. That is even criticizing, because I am one of the most critical persons in even my own culture,
Yeah.
which I completely disagree. Because I don't like that, for example, people are doing tourism to visit Franco or Hitler, like some people they do. But Hitler more in secret because it's not public the moment. So I don't like that the people are going to visit religion things. That at the end, we look at the bottom and at the basis, they are the same thing. That's why I even criticize the Christian religion for that thing, because it's a prehistoric way of fascism and also with the business. For that reason. But anyway, slowly, hopefully one day the people are gonna wake up and do something against that religion stuff. Any religion, even the people who are praying for Marathon or Messi.
Of Saudi Arabia, or maybe the Asian countries, but I really specified also in particular with Saudi Arabia, if they're in Asia. I'd like to say yes, of course, maybe you have to go and respect how the country, their ways of life. Here's the thing, you do not, if for example, Saudi Arabia, you do not get to hurt, they literally torture other people.
Well,
For example, in
torture.
Kenya,
Mm-hmm.
they do. So that's the thing. We need to find a solution to the abuse that other cultures from different countries may get as a result of another country not being open to.
Okay, I can augment. What I wanted to say earlier was in support to her statement
Mm-hmm.
that the MENA region is infamous for its treatment of other African countries. So in relation to promoting tourism, I wanted your thoughts on how you think issue because besides, there's that tension between Arab countries and African countries, where African countries are treated as, slaves, some still kept in those terrible conditions. So, and then later you also said one of the things that I wanted is that you guys are wanting to attract a particular niche market.
Yeah.
A luxurious market.
It's like in Dubai, maybe. Also, we can do that. You mean in Tunisia?
Yeah, so I just wanted to know, what are your thoughts in actually addressing this? Because it becomes about, because it seems like the only people who, the most attractive or desirable tourist is the Western, the European, because the African is not good enough. There is that.
No. Actually, unfortunately. Yeah, can I just answer her and then, okay. So, I will speak about Tunisia again. Actually, unfortunately, we are not receiving other African tourists. I don't know why. We have Algerians and Libyans because we are really close that they come, but we don't have, like, the other nationalities of Africans coming to Tunisia are very, very low. Okay? And when I say good tourism or higher spending tourism, tourists, I don't mean also niche tourism is something else when I speak niche tourism, but I'm speaking in general, like we want to attract higher spending tourists which are not necessarily Europeans, because what we are receiving now, they are Europeans mostly and they are not spending enough. Maybe we can consider the Chinese market or the Japanese market, they are higher spending tourists. And when I say, yeah, more than other Europeans, for instance. And when I say we want, and this can be through diversifying tourism products. You cannot be mono product, offer only coastal tourism and ask people to pay more. You cannot organize all inclusive trips of tourists coming just to stay in the hotel and then ask them to spend more. This is what I was saying about diversifying tourism, and also niche tourism is a kind of this story. It is also another thing that we can discuss it, like, and usually, of course, niche tourism, they are attracting like higher spending tourists. But I'm not speaking about Africans, like, but unfortunately we don't receive other African nationalities.
What do you think that is?
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think
We can.
I have never been in the south, for example. I have never been in the south of my own country, and I have been in Finland.
Yeah, I think we should continue the break.